समझ नहीं आ रहा अपने सैलरी इंक्रीमेंट का क्या करूं।
बेटा इतना क्या सोच रहा है? अपने म्यूचुअल फंड्स के एसआईपी का टॉप अप करा ले। दिस इज द राइट टाइम।
क्या समझ में नहीं आया?
बेटा इतना क्या सोच रहा है? अपने म्यूचुअल फंड्स का एसआईपी टॉपअप करा ले। दिस इज द राइट टाइम।
अब समझा।
Mutual fund investments are subject to market risks. Read all scheme-related documents carefully.
Just as the new BJP government has taken over under Shekhar Gupta as Chief Minister, one of the first things they've done is to place on the floor of the House, that is Delhi Assembly, the CAG report, the Comptroller and Auditor General report on the Delhi liquor policy. This was much awaited. Now, some pages of it had leaked in the run-up to the election, but now this is the full report, so no leaks. This has been placed on the floor of the House. It's the formal document. It's a sizable report. Most of these reports tend to be heavy. It's about 180 pages, so it takes quite a bit of reading because it's done in great detail. However, an interesting thing with CAG reports lately has been that they give you a lot of graphics and things. So tabulation, graphics work is quite good, helps people like me who understand no accounting, understand this a little bit better. No accounting or no auditing in this case. This is not about financial accounts. This is about auditing of policies. And based on the auditing of policies, then CAG arrives at what was good, what was wrong, where were rules followed, not followed, and if they were not followed or if discretion was unfairly or illegally used, although they don't call it illegal, they just ask for inquiries and action and further investigation as they do in many cases, then what could be the loss to the exchequer or the taxpayer? You can use your preferred usage as a result of these policies. That is what is sometimes called presumptive loss. So in this case, the CAG has produced this report and concluded that from the policies that the Delhi government under Aam Aadmi Party followed, or the liquor policy that they implemented, with all the changes and discretionary shifts allegedly they carried out, we have to be very careful, they allegedly carried out, it caused the exchequer a loss at least of some 2002 crores. However, remember that this is still a kind of presumptive loss. How much it is, we'll tell you in some detail in a bit. So remember, there are two parts of this. One was there violation of policies, guidelines, use of discretion that benefited some people unduly, or that caused a loss of opportunity or a loss of revenue to the exchequer. That is one part of it. That's what the CAG looks at. CAG does not look at the criminality. Criminality would be if any of this was done in exchange for money or bribes or commissions. That would be criminality. If there was criminality like that, if money was paid, where is that money and what was done with that money? So if money was paid, that will be Prevention of Corruption Act, so CBI will deal with it. If that money was then employed somewhere or hidden somewhere, then the ED will deal with that. So these two are different things. Now to understand this better, I will also be joined in just a while after I've done some summarizing of the CAG report by Sourav Barman, who covers politics for us, but who's also been covering Delhi government, Delhi politics, specifically Aam Aadmi Party, and also who's done our stories on this CAG report. You will also see those stories. I will share links with you. And then Ananya Bhardwaj, who you know well, who's been covering the criminal side of the story. That means the story from the CBI and from the ED. So both of them will join in to explain the finer aspects of this new development in the Delhi liquor story. I'm not calling it the liquor scam right now because the CAG report is not about the scam, it's about the liquor policy. The criminal cases are about the scam or about the alleged scam. So let's get that clear. So what is it that this CAG report saying, this sizable CAG report? It is saying, number one, that the objective of this policy, they are not saying the policy was wrong. They are saying the policy was twisted, changed without clearances, etc. Generally, they are saying number one, the objective of the policy was to reduce cartels and monopolies in liquor trade in Delhi, but it ended up increasing that, right? Number two, it says, and how did it do that? It says wholesalers. The policy was designed in such a way that only a few wholesalers could sell liquor or could distribute liquor in Delhi. So some wholesalers would get this liquor, put it in their warehouses. In the excise customs language, these would be called bonded warehouses. So if you say I'm taking out 100 cases of this whiskey, then it will go through excise department. So they will say, all right, you have the permission to take this much out, because in the excise register or the customs register, if it's foreign liquor, imported liquor, they will make an entry for the duties. That's why it's called a bonded warehouse. So these wholesalers will then have bonded warehouses. So in Delhi, earlier, there used to be 77 wholesalers. Under the Aam Aadmi Party's new liquor policy, that number of 77 got reduced to 14. So possibility of cartelization actually became greater. That's what the CAG says. Now, there was another twist in that. The twist is that one wholesaler, any one wholesaler out of these 14, could have access to all the manufacturers of all kinds of liquor in India and all the importers of all kinds of foreign liquor in India. India has this peculiar way of describing liquor. So there is country liquor, which is like this desi sharab or thara, as you might call it. But that is quite popular, much more than being country liquor, as in made in the country or informally or being unsafe, etc. It's made in proper distilleries in a certain way. It is liked in the countryside. It's consumed a lot more in the countryside. Sometimes we call it thara as well. So country liquor is one for which also you need vents and licenses. This is not illegal. That's not hooch. It's not illegal. Second, there is IMFL. So that is the funniest Indian formulation, and it's been the butt of many jokes through history. Indian made foreign liquor. What it means is that whiskey, rum, gin, vodka, right, beer, even wines now, made in India. But essentially, these were liquors that the idea of these liquors came from overseas, unlike Indian original liquor. So anything that is made in India, but the idea is of the foreign origin, or generically is of a foreign origin. That's how I listed all of these for you. These are called Indian-made foreign liquor. So IMFL. And third, of course, is foreign liquor. When you read this report, you will go through these acronyms repeatedly. Then what happens? One wholesaler could go to any number of manufacturers, right? So wholesaler ka chandi. 50 manufacturers, one wholesaler can go to 50 manufacturers. But the reverse is not true. Any manufacturer could only go to one wholesaler. So when one wholesaler ties in with manufacturer A out of A, B, C, D, X, Y, Z, right? Manufacturer A, that manufacturer has to give all their supplies for all of the state of Delhi through that one wholesaler. That's how a kind of monopoly system was created. So each wholesaler, each of these 14 could be a monopoly operator. Then within these wholesalers, it was possible to cartelize cross ownership. There were rules provided that wholesalers and retailers, for example, wholesalers, retailers, manufacturers, right? They should not be cross ownership. So the same entity should not own all. The CAG report says that in many cases that was violated. In some cases, in several cases, joint ventures were set up where a new company came in which did not even pass the basic criteria. At least 150 crore turnover over the previous 3 years. And also, you should have been in business, the liquor business, for at least 5 years. That is so that any flippant people don't come in, or somebody who has the power to give licenses, give one to my nephew, one to my uncle, one to my dog, stuff like that. Not like that. So you have to have a certain qualification. In this case, the CAG says that this was diluted in such a way that people could set up joint ventures. So if somebody who had no experience, who had no turnover, no profit, no loss in the liquor business, could sign a joint venture with somebody else who did, that somebody else might have only 1 to 5% of your equity, which is namka vaste. This sometimes in corporate India used to be called escort service. Escort service or escort agency, what it meant was that when foreign companies was first allowed to come and manufacture, say, automobiles in India, Toyota, Mazda, many of these companies, then they had to find a local partner. So local partner usually had some 3%, 5% of equity. Shriram Honda, DCM Toyota, Swaraj Mazda, Toyota Kirloskar, so many of these companies had come up where the Indian partner had very small equity. But Indian partner was something that the foreigner needed to open the doors for them, etc. However, the majority owner and the operator was the foreign partner. Some of that, CAG says, that was legal, fully legal. So I'm not saying that was illegal, fully legal. CAG says that's been used in Delhi as well. That may be legal, but that is not in the spirit of the policy. There is no pun intended there with the word spirit. The spirit of the policy was that there should not be cartelization and there should not be concentration of liquor business in the hands of a few people, and that's been violated. That's what the CAG is complaining about, and they give an example. They say earlier there were 77 distributors, as I told you, wholesalers. Now they were only 14, and there among them also some had a lot of the share of this distribution, and then they had cross holdings even among the users, say owners of restaurants, hotels, and also among those running the liquor vend. So it all became a kind of a linear business. Now, a couple more acronyms we have to remember as we go along: EDP and EBP. So EDP is ex distillery price, EBP is ex brewery price. That's the price at which a factory liquor maker sends the liquor out. So see this one chart. This tells you how price is arrived at for Indian made foreign liquor, IMFL. That could be a Old Monk, Officer's Choice, or any of those brands. I can't recount all of them for you. Now, there, first of all, is the price of the bottle as it leaves the distillery or the brewery for beer. Then on that landed price, you add profit of the wholesaler. So wholesaler also has a profit allocated. Wholesaler has a license called L1. And I will give you a list of licenses. Wholesaler has a profit added to it. Then local transport, then local transport, because when it has come from the distillery or brewery and reached the wholesaler, that transport cost has already been added in the landed price. Now to this you add the wholesaler's profit and local transport. That becomes the wholesale price at which it is sold to the retailers. Wholesale price, and then to that you add retail margin plus excise. Now, excise is a very important part of liquor price. In fact, for many of the brands and many kinds of liquor, excise actually will be more than the price of the bottle of liquor as it leaves the distillery. For imported liquor, excise plus customs will definitely be more than the basic price of liquor. So to arrive at the retail price, you add to wholesale price retail margins, that is again mandated by the government, plus excise revenue, plus VAT. VAT is usually small. All of that added gives you the sale price. So again, CAG says that under the liquor policy, a 5% margin for retailers was allowed, but Aam Aadmi Party government took it to 12% using certain reasonings and arguments with which CAG does not agree. What exactly these objections are, Sourav Barman will tell you in just a few minutes. Similarly, see this other chart. This is how the price of foreign liquor, that's imported liquor, your Chivas Regal, Glenfiddich, Martels, Hennessy, all of that imported stuff, all your single malts. How is that price arrived at? Once again, the chart is very clear. These charts are taken from the CAG report, so thank you very much, CAG. So once again, there is cost plus freight plus insurance, all these containers of foreign liquor that comes in. That give you the landed price. To that you add customs, which is sizable, and then profit of the wholesaler. That becomes the wholesale price. And then, as we did earlier, and add retail margins plus excise plus VAT, etc. That gives you the retail price. So it's very interesting, very important to see these two formulae. Now, the fact is, the CAG report says that in many of these cases, the same bottle of liquor, Delhi government said, they said, how come you arrived at these prices? Delhi government said that we generally checked at the prices in other states and we let the price be fixed somewhere there. Now, CAG report says that in some cases, they've listed these in tables. Same bottle of liquor was selling for less in other states. Now, this is not a comprehensive list, so I can't guarantee to you that there were not some states in which the same bottle of liquor was selling for more. So I don't know that. But they've given these examples. The fact, however, is that liquor prices have always varied from place to place. And liquor in states adjoining Delhi, bordering Delhi, has usually been cheaper than in Delhi. Traditionally, people of Delhi have driven to Gurgaon to buy liquor, right? Because it's been cheaper there. Also, Gurgaon shops now have a lot of variety, or sometimes Noida as well. But Gurgaon has been the favorite place. Gurgaon, Faridabad. I can tell you a story from emergency times when we used to be in college. That's when emergency slogans for all painted 20-point program, Sanjay Gandhi's 5-point formula. All of these were painted on Delhi Transport buses. I think it was then called DTU, Delhi Transport Undertaking, now Delhi Transport Corporation. And one of the slogans that Mrs. Gandhi had at that time was, हम सुनहरे कल की ओर आगे बढ़ रहे हैं. तो उनका प्रॉमिस भी अच्छे दिन का था. She was also promising better days. हम सुनहरे कल की ओर आगे बढ़ रहे हैं. We are moving forward towards a golden dawn, right? So the joke was that all the buses going into Haryana, especially to Faridabad and Gurgaon, they were carrying this slogan, "Hum sunehre kal ke liye aage badh rahe hain," because people will get into these buses and on the way back bring bags full of liquor. Those days, not that many people had cars and very few had two-wheelers as well. So liquor prices varying between states is a pretty normal thing. Then CAG says that Delhi government under the new policy used a presumptive excise duty. What they did was they said that, look, we'll not charge you by the bottle. The bottles have barcodes. CAG would have preferred if each barcode was scanned and then the total amount of excise was arrived at. What the Delhi government did, something they called reformist, is to look at total liquor sales the previous year, which in this case was financial year 1920, and say, let's presume that this year you will sell 10% more and then 10% more like that. So just give me the lump sum of excise, which is 10% more than last year, right? Last year of total sales in Delhi. Remember, before that, most of the sales were done by 4 Delhi government corporations, PSUs. So now they said 10% more. I take my money upfront. उसके बाद जितना मर्जी बेचना है बेचो, मेरे को फर्क नहीं पड़ता. So what the dealers did, what the retailers did, CAG says that once they were not bothered about the numbers, then they started doing deep discounting, 1 plus 1 free, because selling more would not have cost them more in excise, and excise is a major cost. However, Delhi government collected upfront 8,917 rupees. Generally, it's the sum total of the CAG report. They say there was a loss of 2,002 crores. Sourav will explain to us how did they arrive at that figure of 2,002 crores. It is presumptive. One of the things they've also added, and that completely foxed me, they said there are non-conforming areas. Now, non-conforming areas, people did bid, but they could not be set up because official clearance did not come, and the clearance was with the Lieutenant Governor. That did not come. That inability to set up vents in these non-conforming areas, that caused a particular amount of loss. The amount Sourav will tell you, it's a sizable amount. And second, they said a large number of people gave up. A large number of people got their vents and then they gave up. After they gave up, these were not rebid. And because these were not rebid, that again caused a loss of, in this case, 941.53 crores. Again, this is not money that exchanged hands or money that somebody took away. It is a loss to the exchequer because of what CAG sees as a flawed policy. Now, the basic arithmetic we need to understand. So, all of Delhi state was divided under the new excise policy in 32 zones. In each zone, there were 27 liquor vends allowed. So a total, multiply 32 by 27, mental math karo, 864 vends, 849 vends were given out. Now the CAG also says that nearly 72% of this, or 71.7% of this, was cornered by three distributors of Delhi's business, Indo Spirit, Brintco, and Mahadev Liquors. The key people from the first two, Indo Spirit and Brintco, were arrested later by CBI and ED. And CAG says that the first two, that is Brintco and Indo Spirit, they had a monopoly over United Spirits, which is Diageo, and United Breweries, which is Heineken, and Pernod Ricard, which are all the biggest manufacturers and sellers of liquors in India. There is much else in the CAG report, but I think what you should do is, if you're really interested, or if you're preparing for UPSC, right, or writing an essay on this, please read the entire report. We'll share a link with you. So now I'll turn to my two colleagues, Sourav and Ananya. Sourav, you tell us some of these intricacies. How has this figure of 2002 crores arrived at? Give me the breakup.
The breakup is essentially made up of the fact that certain retail licensees who were given licenses to set up liquor vends in so-called non-conforming areas of Delhi.
What are non-conforming areas?
So it has much to do with how Delhi has grown over the years. So Delhi has a lot of unauthorized colonies. Delhi has a lot of areas where there are industrial units where you are not supposed to have those units. So you have 51,000 such units employing some 16 lakh people across Delhi, and I'm quoting from Delhi government's own figures, where these small-scale industries are operating from. So according to the Delhi Master Plan formulated by the Delhi Development Authority, which again comes under the central government, these areas are supposed to be non-conforming, where you are not supposed to have certain activities, including setting up industries, even if it is a small-scale industry, or funnily, you cannot even have liquor vends in those areas because, for example, Sangam Vihar is an unauthorized colony. Anand Parvat near Karol Bagh is an unauthorized colony. You are not supposed to have either industrial units or even liquor vends in those areas. The idea was to basically gradually notify those areas as conforming areas. And this is something which has been happening over decades. Gradually, the number of non-conforming areas in Delhi has come down significantly.
That's because every party keeps on saying we'll regularize illegal colonies.
And also notify a non-conforming industrial area as a conforming area.
So what happened in this case?
In this case, license. So the excise policy did not really differentiate between a conforming area and a non-conforming area. So a retail licensee, as if I was bidding for a retail vend, I could have bid for a vend which is supposed to come up in a non-conforming area as of now.
You could have found one in Sangam Vihar, for example, so or Anand Parbat.
I bid for that and I got it. I was granted that license. And the clause in the excise policy specifically mentioned that Delhi government will sit with the MCD and the DDA and it will sort out the issues.
And get you clearances.
Yes. In fact, the Lieutenant Governor of Delhi had also cleared the policy. This particular bit was even cleared by the LG. But after the licenses were allotted, things got stuck and DDA came up with an order saying we are not going to notify that particular area as conforming because it will go against the spirit of the Delhi Master Plan. So things got stuck. So all these people, many of these people moved the Delhi High Court also. But eventually, according to the CAG, had those vends been operating, those retail licenses would have given the government revenue to the tune of 941 crore.
So that's a 941 crore presumptive loss. पहले तो आप बना नहीं सकते वहाँ पे because non-conforming है.
Yeah.
पर आप non-conforming bid कर सकते. You can have them bid in non-conforming areas on the presumption that
it will be
government which is not with you, which is the centers, will give you clearance.
Right.
The government doesn't give you clearance.
Right. You'll have to,
because of which you are being held responsible for causing a loss.
Right. And the second bulk loss that came from essentially the loss of 890 loss, quote unquote loss of 890 crore on account of surrender of retail licenses.
Right.
So in this particular case, there were bidders who successfully bid and they were allotted license, but they could not set up their vend. Now, the CAG believes that happened primarily because the Delhi government, while formulating the policy, did not really put that clause which should have specifically mentioned that the financial condition of the bidder should be taken into account. Because if I am a retail vendor and if I am granted a license, I'll have to, there will be upfront expenditure of rupees 100 crore. So I need to be someone
Just
with
to
deep
set
pockets.
things up, yes.
Yeah.
Set up a shop, buy my stocks.
Yeah. But going by the excise policy, you just had to submit your ITR returns of the last 3 years. So that there was no condition that you need to have a certain turnover, which means you need to have deep pockets. So in this case, I'll just quote one line that 5 such retail licensees reported almost zero income plus losses, and in this case, they were awarded 10 retail zones. So clearly, they were not in a position, and the CAG says this indicated that the financial conditions of the bidders were not considered as red flags, which the government should have taken into account while issuing the
and
licenses.
when they were not able to set these vends up,
And they surrendered.
they surrendered.
And the government did not go for a retendering.
Yeah. Because if they had retendered, then they would have got excise paid by the guys who took these. And how much would that be?
890 crore.
So that's again a presumptive loss of 890 crores. In fact, it's less presumptive.
But the fact is, we also have to keep in mind the fact that this particular policy was in place only for barely 4 months.
Right.
So I don't think there was any scope for going for retendering because it was scrapped. Once it became controversial, the government hastily withdrew it.
Once the criminal investigations
Yes.
moved in, the government hastily removed it. And what is the rest?
The other one is 140 crore loss. In this particular case, so COVID struck. COVID struck in 2021 when the policy is in place.
2020. And,
2020, spilled over to 2021. So in many cases, so you had all these restrictions during the lockdown, and liquor stores were not open. So they were suffering losses, all these retail vends. So they approached the excise department seeking some waiver, some relief. The department did not give any relief. So they moved the Delhi High Court. But by the time they approached the High Court, the minister in charge, who was Manish Sisodia at that point, he stepped in and he decided to give them the waiver. So that was a relief of 144 crore. And the last one is this
so
amount
144 crore is also added to this.
2002 crore.
Yes.
The other one is 27 crore. In this case, this again pertains to a policy tweak. So in the previous policy, in the old policy, while you are applying for a license, you had to submit if you are given a license, you had to submit a security deposit of 25% of the annual license fee. In this case, they made it 25% of the annual license fee on a pro rata basis.
I see.
Which means, under the previous policy, if I were submitting my security fee, it was essentially the license fee of 3 months. Under the new policy, it became license fee of 1 month. So that charge, that amount is 27 crore. So total, this is the breakup.
Yeah, so you will see the breakup on your screens coming to the figure of 2002. Now, Ananya, now you tell us what part of this is criminal and what are the criminal cases? Because CAG is not calling anything criminal. They are asking for investigations and action in many cases, mostly against officials. But what exactly is the criminal story here?
Yeah. So there are two cases here, essentially. One is being, actually the investigation is completed in both ED and CBI cases. So CBI was the first agency that moved in and registered a case in this entire issue after the then LG had flagged that, there is some sort of discrepancy in this entire policy. So this needs to be looked into. So CBI registered a case. Now this case that CBI had registered pertains to corruption, which is under the Prevention of Corruption Act, and criminal conspiracy. So these are the two essential sections that were invoked in that particular FIR registered by CBI, in which Arvind Kejriwal has been charge sheeted in the final charge sheet. Now the case pertains to basically the policy being designed in a way that certain liquor barons and certain companies were basically favored. So it was tweaked in a way by Manish Sisodia, one of the charge sheets in this case by CBI.
Allegedly tweaked.
Allegedly. I'm quoting the charge sheet. the charge sheet basically calls Manish Sisodia, who was then the excise minister, as the chief architect of this entire conspiracy. So the charge sheet says that he was the minister then, so he tweaked the policy in a way which favored liquor barons, which favored certain companies, and that led to generation of illicit wealth, some sort of illegal wealth, which was basically generated as part of criminal conspiracy by top leaders of Aam Aadmi Party. And that is when they also bring in Arvind Kejriwal, saying that he was basically, he knew about this entire operation, how this was happening. So this was the corruption and the criminal conspiracy part of it, that they generated this amount of money. Like, for example, they said they favored South Group, the group from the South, and took rupees 100 crores.
So what is South Group?
So this is basically businessman, in which one major person was KCR's daughter, the chief minister's daughter, K. Kavita. Yeah, and a lot of businessmen from different liquor industries. So Abhishek Boinpalli was one, Butchi Babu, who was the CA of K. Kavita, was one of the accused. So all of them were arrested. So these are companies that got together, and basically the allegation being that they approached Arvind Kejriwal while he was in Delhi, saying that we need to get into the liquor market in Delhi. So according to one of the charge sheets that was filed by ED, it says that they have on statement one of the accused saying that he met Arvind Kejriwal in his office in the secretariat, and he proposed that they want to get into this business of liquor, and he said that yes, why not? You have to, I have already spoken to K. Kavita about this entire business, and she is ready to give 100 crores to us for this. So you go and speak to her, and your teams can decide how you have to do it. We want to do business here, and all of you are welcome.
Yeah, so but these are all verbal statements.
These are all verbal statements, and a main point here is that ED, which is probing the other aspect of it, which is money laundering, has based most of their investigation on these statements. And one pertinent point is that all of these people on which ED is basically basing its case on were themselves accused in the CBI and ED case, who have now turned approvers. So a lot of it, like Dinesh Arora is one of the accused who later turned approver. So they are giving statements, and that is what the ED has based mostly entirely their case on, because there was no money trail that could be established. So in the case of corruption, 2-3 things that CBI has pointed out, as far as Manish Sisodia's involvement is concerned, is that one, he basically pressurized his excise officials to make those tweaks, and they have put on record statements from those excise officials that we were told to make these tweaks in the policy to favor these people. Second, they say that Butchi Babu, who was the CA of K. Kavita, had pages of the group of ministers meet, the document of the excise policy 2 days before it had to be tabled at the Council of Ministers meeting. So how did he have those pages before the policy?
Unless there was Mili Bhagat.
Exactly. So that is what the ED has said. And third, of course, since he was the excise minister then, so he has taken money to basically tweak that policy to increase the profit margin from 5% to 12%, saying that 6% of that margin will be paid as kickback to Aam Aadmi Party.
So what is this issue with increasing of profit margin? What is the CAG saying, and what is it that the Aam Aadmi Party says?
This is one aspect which both CAG and ED has, both the agencies have pointed out in their respective reports. So in the case of CAG, they are saying this profit hike, the hike of profit margin from 5% to 12%. For that, the AAP government had justified it, saying, it is necessary for the wholesale licensees to meet global standards, because they have to set up quality labs in their warehouses, which is needed to check whether the liquor being supplied meets those standards, whether it's spurious or substandard. The CAG, during its audit, found that those labs were not set up. The government also pointed out that it is needed for the wholesale licensees to meet the expenses pertaining to the local transportation of liquor. So that did not cut ties with the CAG as well. The CAG felt that, that does not warrant such a steep hike in profit margin.
So they say that was unreasonable, and that might have also led to some. This has not caused a loss to the exchequer, but
Yeah.
this might have been the cause of some leakage or
Kickback.
commissions and
Kickback,
kickbacks, and
yeah.
that is where criminality also comes from. So the two things go on parallel tracks. This is more about politics, right? But it's also quite likely that the agencies will use this in support of their contentions
Yeah.
in court.
Yeah.
And these cases are all at trial stage now.
Yeah, so the final charge sheets have been filed by both CBI and ED, but the trial has not yet begun because the scrutiny of documents have to take place before that. So we don't know. I mean, what happens usually is it takes about a year also because that's how they delay the trial. But the final charge sheets by both agencies have been filed to say that probe has ended.
So thank you very much, Sourav and Ananya. You've really helped explain this because I was struggling reading this big fat report and then figuring out what's criminal, what is not criminal. It was quite a challenge. So thank you very much for making it simpler. And all I can tell you is that the liquor story in Delhi has not gone away. It has not gone away. It will keep coming back. So as more twists and turns take place, follow the coverage of our team, especially Ananya and Sourav, and as and when I notice more clutter, I'll also come back to you.